friends, family, and internet strangers. Stephanie here, and I've got a new What's for Dinner video for you. These meals are all very budget friendly and super easy because easy was what I needed this week. Now at the end of the video, I also have a fun little surprise that I wanted to share with y'all, so I hope you'll stick around for that. But for now, let's get into some meals. First up, I decided to try that viral spaghetti, except I used rigatoni. I didn't follow an exact recipe for this. I just took inspiration from the meat sauce and cream sauce together kind of thing. So I used ground sausage. You could also use ground beef, ground turkey, whatever ground meat you prefer. I like the flavor of ground sausage with pasta. And I know this may shock any of you who have been around for a long time, but yes, that was jarred spaghetti sauce. If you are new here, I usually have my own spaghetti sauce that I make in large batches and I freeze it, except I was out, but I still really wanted to try this and I had a coupon for the ragu. So figured, may as well, if there's ever a recipe I'm going to use it for, this will be the one. So I used ragu and put it in with my mild Italian sausage, and then I just let this simmer for a while my pasta was boiling. I let the flavors of the sausage and that spaghetti sauce come together. I did use the one with the chunky garlic and onion. Recommend that one if you are trying ragu. I don't recommend the Alfredo sauce though. I only got the ragu Alfredo because I had a coupon for it. Otherwise, normally I would make my own Alfredo sauce as well or use one of the other brands. But again, I did not have everything on hand. I didn't have my jarred sauce, or I didn't have my homemade sauce in the freezer. I didn't have any milk or heavy cream on hand. So the jarred sauce was the way to go. I did doctor it up a little bit though. I added Parmesan cheese, a little bit of garlic powder, and then also added a little bit of Italian seasoning and a little bit of pepper to that as well. And I also didn't have spaghetti on hand, so really I didn't have most of the ingredients needed for this, but I did have rigatoni that I wanted to use up, so I figured this would work just fine, and it did. This was a decent meal. Would it be better with a homemade Alfredo sauce? Probably, or with a different brand, but it still got the job done. It was a delicious meal and it reheated really well. I did have this for several days for lunch after having this for dinner. So I have mixed up my Alfredo sauce with some seasonings and some Parmesan cheese, and I am just putting that in the bottom of a baking dish. And then on top of this, once I've got it all in there and all leveled out, I am just going to simply spoon my mixture of the spaghetti sauce and the ground sausage over the top of this. And if you haven't seen anyone else do this before, if you haven't seen those reels and TikToks and all of the other people on YouTube trying this as well, you do not mix this. You just layer it. So you have the bottom layer with the pasta with the cream sauce, and then you put the meat sauce over the top of it, and then top it with some cheese and bake it in the oven. So it's a very, very simple meal, but it is so tasty. I can understand how this one has gotten so popular. The only time I've really had something more along these lines where you've got the creamy Alfredo pasta and more of a marinara based sauce is I can think of at Cheesecake Factory. They have that chicken parm pizza where it's a really big piece of chicken parm, but then they put the Alfredo noodles on top of it. If you've never gotten that from Cheesecake Factory, it is one of my favorite things they have there, and talking about it now is making me really want to go to Cheesecake Factory. I kind of set myself up for that one, but eventually I may have to make it to Cheesecake Factory sometime soon. But I am not measuring anything with this. I didn't measure my seasonings that I put in with my Alfredo and my pasta. I didn't measure my cheese. You measure that with your heart, right? And then I just sprinkled parsley over the top of this. I put it in the oven for about 20 minutes at 350 until the cheese was melted and you could see it bubbling up through there, and served this with a side Caesar salad, and it was a very tasty meal. The next night was very simple, leftover chili. That was it. It was late. I didn't feel like cooking, so this was the last of my chili from last week's video. And then the next night, I finally had my Costco rotisserie chicken. I was very excited about this. If you missed it last week, I finally got a Costco membership. I have an entire video about it, but I was very excited about this rotisserie chicken. I decided I wanted a gravy though, and I didn't have any jarred gravy or any packets of gravy, but I figured it would be easy enough to just make my own little small batch of gravy. So I ended up making an onion gravy. I started out with a roux. I have my melted butter and my flour, and I am just mixing those together and letting the taste of that flour kind of cook out a little bit, and then adding in milk to this. The only milk I had on hand was almond milk, but it worked just fine. So I continued to whisk that and whisked all of the lumps out from that flour and butter mixture. And then I only really wanted a single portion of this, so it wasn't too much milk. I added in some black pepper, whisked that up a little bit more. And then to this, I didn't want to use chicken bouillon. I thought an onion gravy might be good, and I had this Better Than Bouillon sauteed onion version, and so I added just a little bit of that into this mixture, and this was so good. I will have to do this again. I can imagine this being really good on beef. So I may have to try this over some beef one of these days, but it worked really well over my instant mashed potatoes that I had with a salad and my Costco chicken. And then the next night, it was Ducky's birthday, and so we celebrated by going through a drive-through, because that's what you do when you celebrate a car's birthday, right? So Taco Bell was it. I get the cravings box I order on the app, so happy birthday to Ducky. This day marked 1 year since I picked up my car that I love dearly. Next up, the next night, I was dying to try these Costco dumplings that I had gotten in my Costco haul. It was these Bibigo chicken and vegetable dumplings. I had tried them as a sample in the store and loved them so much that I bought them even though they were not on my list. They come with this little packet. You put them in the microwave and then you have the little sauce on the side. I served mine with broccoli, which also tasted really good dipped in the sauce. Nice easy meal. Next up, I'm calling this a nacho salad. You could technically just call it nachos, but this is not the way I normally make nachos. This right here, this first part of the process, this is how I make nachos normally. I plan on having nachos and a salad on the side, but I didn't feel like cutting up any of the other vegetables to go in my salad, so it was just going to be lettuce and dressing, so I turned this into a nacho salad. So to start out with my nachos, this is the way I've been making them for years. Instead of doing just ground taco meat, I used a can of Hormel chili. And then it's got my beans, my meat, a little bit of sauce, all right in there. So I take my tortilla chips, I lay them down, I put some of the Hormel chili over the top of it. For this, I ended up using about half of the can here and then half of the can the next day when I had this exact same meal again, because it really was very good the way that I did this. So once I've got my Hormel chili on there, I also add cheese. Doesn't matter what kind, but this is what I had on hand, was this nacho and taco blend. So that, of course, melted really well over the top of these. So once I've got my cheese on there, I like to make sure I add a little bit, not just on top of the meat, but also to some of the chips, because then the cheese gets nice and crispy with the chips. And then I just threw these in my air fry oven until the cheese was melted, because by the time the cheese is melted, the Hormel chili is heated through. You don't have to worry about that getting fully cooked to a certain temperature because it's already fully cooked in the can. So I just needed to heat all of that through and let my chips get nice and toasty. So this is what that looks like. Normally, I would stop here and just put sour cream and cheese on top of it, but because I wanted to make a vegetable in this. I ended up just putting my lettuce right on top of those nachos when I got them out of the oven. And then I normally, if I were going to be making a salad, would have peppers and cucumbers, but I just was not in the mood to cut them. But I did have this really good salsa that I had gotten on clearance. So it was different than the salsa normally I get, the kind in the jars. So this had a nice fresh taste to it. I had gotten it on clearance at Kroger. So I added that all over the top, and then a dollop of sour cream and a little sprinkle of red onion. And as I mentioned before, I did have this meal twice. I had it this night, and then I had it again for lunch the next day. And then for the last meal of this video, this night I got very distracted when I got home from work, and I'm going to tell you more about that in just a moment. But by the time I was no longer distracted and realized I should probably eat something, it was too late to cook anything. So I ended up having some of those Just Bare chicken chunks that I had also gotten at Costco. I really made it through a lot of my Costco stuff in this first week of a Costco membership. Some leftover of the mashed potatoes that I just put some barbecue sauce as a little gravy in those, and some of the peppers that I had chopped up for lunches but didn't need them every day for lunch, so I had some left over. That's going to do it for the meal portion of this video. If you enjoyed it, I hope you give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any more content. I've got those grocery hauls coming every Monday and these What's for Dinners every Wednesday. But now I've got a fun little surprise. So about 2 weeks ago, one of my best friends, who also happens to be the one with the spare key to my apartment for when I'm out of town and need my mail brought in and that kind of stuff, she sent me an Instagram reel that she saw of someone house sitting for their friend and leaving 200 tiny little ducks all over the friend's apartment. And she sent this to me with a little evil face emoji. But I responded saying, you know, I would actually like that, because anytime I found a duck in a new spot, it would make me smile and I'd get a chuckle out of it. So I actually kind of like that idea. I think nothing of it because I'm not going out of town anytime soon. And so then the following week, almost exactly a week later, I come home from work on a random Friday to find that my apartment is filled with those tiny little ducks. Not 200 of them, only 50 because it's a small apartment, but I wanted to share that with y'all. So enjoy, to round out the end of this video, some of the hiding spots, at least, not all, that I found tiny ducks. And I still have a few more to find, but I've found over 40 at this point. So I give you tiny ducks.
When the lights are out and you stumble in the dark, you kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby.